This is a tale of two cities, Adelaide in South Australia and George Town, Penang in Malaysia, joined in history through a father and his son.
2013 is the 40th anniversary of the Adelaide-George Town sister city relationship. The City of Adelaide has 4 sister city relationships with cities throughout the world. They're built on council to council, government to government, business to business and community to community relationships that have sprouted countless opportunities and generated a huge number of benefits for local communities and communities throughout cities in the world. The idea for the relationship between Adelaide and George Town came from the South Australian Premier, Don Dunstan. In 1973, the same year in which the Adelaide Festival Centre was opened, the Lord Mayor and Chief Minister of the State of Penang in Malaysia signed into being the Sister City Partnership between Adelaide and George Town, Penang. Adelaide City Council this year are holding a civic ceremony during the OzAsia Festival to celebrate 40 years of the Sister City relationship and the bond between the two cities who share a common thread of history.
Many South Australians know the name of William Light. He was the state's first Surveyor General and is recognised as designing the city's streets and our famous sprawling parklands. But many people are not aware that William Light was born in Kedah, now part of Malaysia, and spent the first 6 years of his life in Penang. William Light's father was Francis Light, a sailor and trader. Francis Light spent much of his life at sea, first joining the Royal Navy and then the East India Company, trading in India and Southeast Asia. He took possession of the island of Penang on the Straits of Malacca from the Sultan of Kedah.
His diary records how he hoisted the British colours in the name of His Majesty George III and for the use of the Honourable East India Company on the 11th day of August 1786, being the eve of the Prince of Wales' birthday.
From this time until his death, Francis Light served as the superintendent of the island. There is an enduring story relating to the enormous task of clearing the Malay jungle. To encourage the axemen to work to maximum capacity, he is said to have loaded bags of gleaming silver dollars into his ship's cannons and fired them repeatedly into the jungle. Like his father, Francis's son William was also a sailor. At only 6, he was sent to England for an education, and at 14 entered the Royal Navy, later building a career in the military. In this age of empire, both men travelled widely, exploring exotic places and mastering several languages during their lives. Not only are there parallels in the careers of father and son, there are mysteries too, in their relationships and personal lives. There is a record of William having married a native of Londonderry, but very little is known about her. He later married Mary Bennett when he was 39 and nearly twice her age. The couple spent several years travelling around Europe, but later separated. When William came to South Australia in 1836, he was accompanied by Maria Gandhi, but the two were never married. Equally as intriguing is William Light's mother, Martina Rosells. Some claim that she was a Malay princess, the daughter of the Sultan, and that the island of Penang was actually part of the marriage contract. Francis Stewart, though, has a very different view. At the conclusion of his description of the founding of the colony of Penang, he writes,
"Having narrated the real history of the British settlement, it seems necessary to mention here the romantic story, which has become an underlying legend that Captain Light received Penang as a marriage portion with the daughter of the King of Kedah. A legend which we are assured was fondly cherished by his descendants." John Crawford in 1820 denies the story utterly and asserts that the wife of the enterprising adventurer was neither a princess nor a Malay, but was instead a Portuguese of Siam.
After he left George Town as a child, William never saw his father again. Francis died of malaria just 2 years later. But it would appear that William sought to emulate his father's important role in the founding of a British colony. It has been suggested that William took the post in South Australia in a deliberate attempt to follow in his father's footsteps. Although founded 50 years apart, many of the same criteria applied in the selection of the sites. Francis recommended Penang to the British for its safe harbour, essential in a region often battered by fierce tropical winds. For William too, a suitable harbour was a key component in selecting the site for Adelaide. Light was immediately attracted to what he saw in South Australia. This is what he recorded in his diary when he first landed at Rapid Bay on the South Australian mainland.
Came to anchor in 10 fathoms. A beautiful little valley in view. At 2, I went ashore and was enchanted by the appearance of the whole. A fine stream of fresh water ran through the middle of the valley into the sea, and the soil was rich beyond my expectation. My hopes were now raised to a pitch I cannot describe. I walked up one of the hills and was delighted to find that as far as I could see, all around, there was an appearance of fertility and a total absence of those wastes and barren spots which the accounts I received in England led me to expect.
After a quick but extensive survey of the coast, he settled on the site where Adelaide now stands. His choice of site, however, was not uniformly popular, and bitter squabbles between the colonists ensued. Light remained resolute, recording in his diary,
The reasons that led me to fix Adelaide where it is, I do not expect to be generally understood or calmly judged of at present. My enemies, however, by disputing their validity in every particular, have done me the good service of fixing the whole of the responsibility upon me. I am perfectly willing to bear it, and I leave it to posterity, and not to them, to decide whether I am entitled to praise or blame.
The strain of these conflicts no doubt contributed to Light's already poor health. He was suffering from tuberculosis, and in October 1839 he died, aged 53, 1 year shy of his father's age when he died. These two men, the visionary Lights, have been commemorated in their respective cities in a remarkably similar way. Many South Australians are familiar with the statue of William Light, which currently stands at the top of Montefiore Hill, pointing out over the city. Penang has a similar statue of Francis Light, which was commissioned in 1936 for the 150th anniversary of the founding of the British colony. As there was no known portrait of Francis Light, the artist used images of William Light to create the likeness. As Englishmen in an age of empire, both men were well regarded for their achievements. Of course, viewed through today's understandings of the impacts of colonialism on Indigenous people, a very different story emerges. Yet, these two men shaped how we live in Penang and Adelaide today.
With 50 years separating the founding of these cities, they have defined their own destinies as vibrant and interesting destinations. But in today's connected world, these sister cities share a common ancestry and new links are continually being forged. In a century of cities, we can look forward to an increasingly closer relationship in areas such as education, trade and tourism.
I would like to say that the relationship of Adelaide and George Town is pretty close. It's closer than most people realize. We are aware of the history, so therefore we feel very much at home with Adelaide. It's just a father and son, the relationship is so close. We feel very, 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 very comfortable here.
The Adelaide Festival Centre's OzAsia Festival celebrates the legacy of two visionary Lights, Francis and William, and their cities, Georgetown, Penang, and Adelaide.